In this video, we're going to learn how to use Supabase with C#. Let's jump right in. So first of all, what is Supabase? In short, Supabase is an open source backend platform that gives you a PostgreSQL database, authentication, and AP is out of the box. You can think of it as a powerful backend service built on top of PostgreSQL. I've added the Supabase website to the description of this video. Go ahead, open it, and log in. Once you're inside the dashboard, we're going to create a new project. I'll give my project a name. You can choose anything you like. And then Supabase will ask for a database password. You can generate a random one, that's totally fine. But very important, make sure you save that password somewhere safe. We'll need it in a minute. After the project is created, go to the connection string section. Here, select .NET and also make sure to choose the transaction pooler option. Supabase will automatically generate a connection string that we can use directly in our C# application. Just copy that string. We'll paste it into our project soon. Now let's switch to Visual Studio Code. I'm creating a new C# console project. This is going to be our playground. Once the project is ready, we need to add the required PostgreSQL library to our project. First, I add the package prepared for PostgreSQL to the project. On the Supabase website, right above the connection string, there's also an add package command. Copy that command and run it in your project's terminal. That will install the necessary PostgreSQL package so our C# app can talk to PostgreSQL. Next, we're going to create a JSON file inside the project to store our connection string. This is a clean and professional way to manage configuration. Inside that JSON file, we paste the connection string we copied from Supabase. And here's the important part. You must replace the placeholder password in that string with the actual password you saved when creating the Supabase project. Don't skip this step. If the password is wrong, the connection will fail. Alright, now we're ready to write some code inside the program file. In this first example, we're simply going to connect to Supabase and check if everything works. Let's walk through what's happening in this code. First, we're importing the necessary namespaces. We need the configuration library to read from our JSON file, and we need PostgreSQL to connect to PostgreSQL. Inside the main method, we build a configuration object. This part tells our application to look in the current directory and read the JSON configuration file we created. Basically, we're saying, hey, go find that app settings file and load the connection string from there. Then we retrieve the connection string using its name. This keeps our code clean and avoids hard coding sensitive information directly inside the program. After that, we enter a try-catch block. This is important because connecting to a database can fail for many reasons. Wrong password, network issue, incorrect string, anything. Inside the try block, we create a new PostgreSQL connection using the connection string. Then we open the connection. When we call open, our application actually attempts to connect to Supabase's PostgreSQL database in the cloud. If everything goes well, we print a success message to the console saying that we connected successfully to Supabase. If something goes wrong, the catch block will capture the exception and print the error message so we can understand what happened. Alright, let's run the project and see what happens. And there we go. We successfully connected to Supabase. That means our connection string is correct, our password is correct, and our C# application can now communicate with our Supabase database. Now that we know how to establish a connection, we're ready to move on to the next example. Let's take it one step further. Now we're going to learn how to perform create, read, update, and delete operations, the famous CRUD operations. Let's go back to the Supabase dashboard and open the SQL editor. Here, we're going to create a new table called users. This table will have an auto-incrementing ID, a name field, an email field that must be unique, and a created underscore at column that automatically stores the current timestamp when a new row is inserted. Very simple structure. The ID uniquely identifies each user, name, and email store user information, and created underscore tells us when the record was created. Once we run this query, our table should be created, and right now it should be completely empty. Let's quickly run a select query to check. As you can see, no rows yet. Perfect, clean and ready. Now comes the fun part, inserting data into this table using C#. We go back to our C# project. Just like before, we create a new database connection using our connection string and open it. Nothing new here. We already know how this part works. Then we define an SQL insert statement. This statement tells PostgreSQL that we want to insert values into the users table, specifically into the name and email columns. Notice something very important here. Instead of directly writing the values into the SQL string, we use parameters. This is extremely important for security. Using parameters protects us against SQL injection attacks and makes our queries safer and cleaner. After defining the SQL statement, we create a command object and associate it with our open connection. Then we add parameter values, one for the name and one for the email. These values will replace the placeholders inside our SQL query safely. Next, we execute the command using a method that runs SQL statements which do not return rows. Since insert operations don't return result sets, this is exactly what we need. The method returns the number of affected rows, which basically tells us how many records were inserted. Finally, we print that number to the console so we can confirm what happened. Alright, let's run the project and see what happens. And there it is. One row inserted successfully. That means our C# application just created a new record inside our Supabase database. Now let's immediately verify this from the Supabase side. We go back to the SQL editor and run a select query on the users table. We can see the new record right there. The ID was generated automatically, the name and email are stored correctly, and the created underscore at field was filled automatically by the database. That's awesome. We just inserted data into Supabase using C#. Now that we know how to create data, let's move on to the next operation and continue building our CRUD knowledge step by step. In this example, we're going to update an existing user in our database. We start the same way as before. We create a new database connection using our connection string and open it. At this point, our application is connected and ready to talk to Supabase. Now, instead of hard-coding values, we make things interactive. We ask the user to enter the ID of the record they want to update. This means our program will wait for input from the console. Then we read that value and convert it into an integer because our ID column is numeric. Next, we ask for the new name and the new email. Again, we read those values directly from the console. So now our application is dynamically collecting the updated information from the user. This makes the program much more flexible. After collecting the input, we define our SQL update statement. This statement tells the database, go to the users table, find the row where the ID matches the given ID, and update the name and email columns with the new values. Just like in the insert example, we use parameters. This is very important. We pass the ID, the new name, and the new email as parameters to the command. This keeps our query safe and prevents SQL injection. Then we execute the command using the same method as before. Since update does not return rows but modifies existing ones, we use the method that returns the number of affected rows. Now here's a nice touch. We check how many rows were affected. If the number is greater than 0, that means a matching record was found and updated successfully. If it's 0, it means no user with that ID exists in the database. So we print a message accordingly. This gives us immediate feedback. Alright, let's run the project and see what happens. When prompted, I'll enter 1 as the user ID. Then for the new name, I'm setting it to Schofield. I'll also update the email. And there we go. The program tells us the user was updated successfully. Now let's immediately verify this inside Supabase. And yes, the record with ID 1 now shows the updated name as Schofield. The update worked perfectly. We just successfully modified existing data in Supabase using C#. Let's keep going and complete the final CRUD operation. In this final example, we're going to delete a user from our database. Just like the previous examples, we begin by creating a connection and opening it. Our application is now connected to Supabase and ready to execute commands. This time, we ask the user to enter the ID of the record they want to delete. The program waits for input from the console, reads the value, and converts it into an integer because our ID column is numeric. Then we define a delete statement. This statement tells the database, go to the user's table and remove the row where the ID matches the given parameter. Again, we use a parameter instead of directly inserting the value into the SQL statement. This keeps our query secure and prevents SQL injection. We attach the ID parameter to the command, execute it, and store the number of affected rows. Just like in the update example, we check how many rows were affected. If the number is greater than 0, it means the user existed and was deleted successfully. If it's 0, it means no matching record was found. Alright, let's run the project and see what happens. When prompted, I'll enter one as the user ID. And there we go. The program tells us the user was deleted successfully. Now let's verify it from Supabase. We go back to the SQL editor, and yes, the record with ID 1 is no longer there. If you want to continue learning software development, check out the courses section on the channel. There are many free courses you can follow step by step. And if you'd like to support us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and consider joining. Keep learning, keep building, and see you in the next video.